listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the horse racing picks preview for the Arkansas Derby and Virtual Triple Crown Showdown that run on Saturday, May 2nd, 2020. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, folks. Talking horses with you, Brian Blessing in Las Vegas. It's going to be a fun Saturday. It's supposed to be the first Saturday. It is, well, it's supposed to be. It is the first Saturday of May, but it's supposed to be the Kentucky Derby, but it's not. It's two divisions of the Arkansas Derby and another great race, which is actually, because they're running in divisions, the highest priced race of the day is race 12, the Grade 2 Oaklawn Park Handicap for older horses. So we got three great races at Oaklawn Park, and they're going to be showing on NBC past derbies and doing this virtual derby with all the Triple Crown winners, which is actually a pretty interesting thing that, in fact, you can bet on, and we'll get into that. Let's go with the big races at Oaklawn. Let's start with race 12 so we can keep the Arkansas Derby divisions together. And this is a mile and an eighth in distance, the Grade 2 Oaklawn Park Handicap, $600,000 on the line. A number of really good horses in here. And I think we got a decent price we're going to end up saddling onto. And the one thing I'm just going to say, and it could be a mistake, but there are a number of horses that are in here that have 100 plus buyers on their resume. And that forever and a day would be the deal where, you know, you'd be handicapping the Derby and there'd be four horses that had a buyer in excess of 100. You know, could somebody freak on Derby Day and win the thing? Sure. But people would thumb their nose, and year after year, at the end of the day, you'd go back and say, well, it was one of the four that had the 100 plus buyer. I'm using that philosophy for this race. And let's start with some of the contenders. Number 2 is Trophy Chaser. Really big price here, 12-1, because you get the connections. It's Juan Avila. You know, for the most part, there's a Florida-based crew coming in here, and Sammy Camacho gets them out. And hence the 12-1 morning line, which anticipates, you know, what the number will actually be when the race goes off. But clearly, 1-for-1 at the distance, 103, 102 buyers at Gulfstream Park and at Tampa Bay in great form, back-to-back wins. The last one, though, the Grade 3 Challenger, could have taken something out of this son of twirling candy, but a contender nonetheless. I'm going to skip by the horse I think that is going to win the race. We'll go to number 7 and go to Combatant with Joel Rosario aboard for trainer John Sadler. Terrific rider. By the way, Rosario's lighting it up at Oaklawn. He's winning 33% of the time, and he's only riding the big money races. So the connections alone, this one's a contender. And it's the second race under the care of John Sadler, third off the shelf in 2020. Certainly is one to strongly consider. I am not in love with the price at 4-1. 9-2 is Tacitus with back class. A lot of people love Tacitus. Juddmonte Farms, Bill Mott, John Velasquez, the connections. I got to draw a line through Tacitus. Can Tacitus win the race? Sure. But the last time we saw this one was going far, far away and going over to Dubai, and horses come back and aren't the same, and, you know, back class to the moon. But this is clearly a horse with seconditis, second in the Belmont, second in the Jim Dandy, second in the Travers. And I just don't like the travel deal here, albeit that race was the end of February. It just doesn't seem to work out. At least history tells us that. And I think improbable on the far outside the 14 hole, 8-1. This one, a 99 buyer last time out in the slop. Well, it was a wet fast track in the Oaklawn Mile. Stretches out here. Is one that's capable for Bob Baffert. The horse is gonna take a boatload of dough because it's Bob Baffert. But again, only one race bigger than 100 on the resume. That was at Del Mar last summer. Is it capable? Sure. I think the post is the problem here. So the one I like, and we're basically looking at 6-1 in the morning line. Freshened for this race, and it's a track that has had an inside speed bias And this one can sit just off the pace or go to the front. And drawing the 4-hole, I think, would have the opportunity to grab the rail or at least be along the rail in perfect striking position. And that's number 4, Mr. Freeze. 6-1. Dale Roman's the trainer. Joe Talamo riding well at Oaklawn Park. And I think this horse is sitting on a big opportunity. I think the track plays in this one's favor. And, oh, by the way, last time out, 107 buyer drew off one for fun in the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Mile. The one pause for concern, I mean, it's the competition it's facing, but is 1 for 5 at the distance, but with 2 runner-ups and a third. But current form, and if that last race comes to fruition here, I think you got to come right back with Mr. Freeze. That's what I'll do in the Oaklawn Park Handicap. So then we go to the Arkansas Derby, which is going to be running 2 divisions. Honestly, I don't think there's no need to waste a lot of time here. Charlatans even money in the morning line. Charlatan will go off 2 to 5, if not 1 to 9. This Son of Spadestown is 2 for 2. Buyer figures that tower over the competition. The rail can be problematic if you break poorly, but if this one breaks cleanly, it's how far? I mean, it could win by 10 lanes. And the inside is the way to go at Oaklawn Park. And this horse literally is mirroring exactly what Batford did with Justify that ended up being a Triple Crown winner. This horse was supposed to be running in the Kentucky Derby today and would have been the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. I believe that. I think Charlatan will win by the length of the stretch here. But one I like behind it, well, a lot of people are talking about Governor Morris. John Velasquez for Todd Pletcher, the number 4, 9-2 second choice, with a stalking style that is lightly raced, finished 4th at 5-1 in the Florida Derby. A lot of people are, saying this is the now horse. The one I think can come back, and maybe you get the price in terms of the exact, and I'd play it cold, is the 8 Anudor that takes blinkers off, which promotes a better closing kick. They go back to Hernandez, who rode this horse for the first 3 mounts of his career for trainer Blaine Wright. He is a Golden Gate-based rider who's really, really good. They go to the Risen Star at Fairgrounds, and time to go to the big-name jockey, and it was Joel Rosario aboard. The horse got bumped at the break, didn't run a step, but was a massive favorite in an 11-horse field in the Risen Star and had a problem. So if you scratch the problem and this one runs back to what they thought it were, I think that's a cold deck exacta. 1-8 Charlatan to win the first division of the Arkansas Derby. Betmaker, let's make some money tonight. For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. And then we go to the race 13, second division. And both of these divisions are $500,000. The one Finnick the Fierce has a closing kick that, could take a step forward and maybe round out exotics. But, as I break this race down, I think the main contenders are 3 Storm the Court that can flash speed for trainer Peter Urton with Flavian Prada aboard, maybe get the rail and go further than you'd expect at 6-1. King Guillermo won the Tampa Bay Derby in incredibly impressive fashion with a 99 buyer in a repeat of that last race. I do believe is absolutely good enough to win this race. Now, don't forget, this horse was 49-1 in the Tampa Bay Derby. But the difference between the 2-year-old and the 3-year-old is night and day. And is this what this horse is now? First race, a 3-year-old fires that race. I think he has every opportunity to run right back with a big one. Nadal, the 5, is going to take a truckload of dough. 3 for 3. Baffert, Rosario, 2 races at Santa Anita. Wins the Grade 2 Rebel on the front end. In the slop, has every opportunity to be a factor here. But I think there could be a little bit of a speed duel, which makes me think there could be some chinks in the armor. Now, one that has tactical speed but I think we'll employ a stalking style here and have a real good opportunity. And I'm going between the lines here, literally, to come up with the horse I believe can win this race. At 10-1 is the 7 Silver Prospector for trainer Steve Asmussen. Go-to rider Santana's in the irons. Finished 4th in the Smarty Jones, an in-house stake in the mud. Didn't like the mud. Then comes back, runs the Grade 3 Southwest, a prep for this race, and it puts a 97 buyer figure up. Has only raced on a fast track 3 times, won 2 of the 3 with a 97 buyer. Last race, the Grade 2 Rebel, Nadal won that race, but Silver Prospector's already proven to you he doesn't like the slop, and he ran up the track in that race. Well, if it comes up a fast track Saturday, I think Silver Prospector turns the tables on Nadal. I think Silver Prospector is the absolute price play in that second division of the Arkansas Derby. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about is the Virtual Triple Crown Showdown. NBC is going to be showing past derbies. They'll be showing the Arkansas Derbies, the big races at Oaklawn Park. But then they are putting up the Virtual Triple Crown Kentucky Derby with every horse that won the Triple Crown, 13-horse field, and it's going to be, a computer-generated deal. And this is going to be interesting because, the Belmont run by Secretariat is one of the greatest races of all time. And you do look at the horse's record with 16-3-1. But there's just something tells me Secretariat is just going to get such big play here and will absolutely be part of the equation. But I was mortally convinced that Secretariat would win this race for fun. But you know what? I mean, depending on how they program the computer chip, there are a lot of ways that this could shake out. Affirmed Alidar. Well, okay. Affirmed 7-1, right? Well, there's only one horse in this race that beat another Triple Crown winner, and that's Seattle Slew, who beat Affirmed head-to-head. So I'd almost eliminate Affirmed and put Seattle Slew at 5-1 into the equation. Then it's how do you compare eras? I think they would put American Pharaoh above Justify with recent history. And to make it fun, I think American Pharaoh certainly going to be involved, knee-deep in this race in the stretch. But then you got to say, what about the older horses, the War Admirals and the Citations? Horses that used to run 25, 30 times a year. And it's so hard to compare eras. But I think it would make news if they said that a Citation or a War Admiral, turning the clock way back to 1948. The one thing is, if you were to go that route, I'm looking for War Admiral here. Where's my War Admiral? War Admiral's on the board. He's 12-1. But you look at Citation, who's 5-1. If you remember, you had that massive gap between the last Triple Crown winner, Citation, in 1948, and then it had to go all the way into the 70s, to get the next Kentucky Derby winner, and that was Secretariat in 1973. I think Citation, because that record stood up for so long, I think Hayes going to get extra credit. I think Seattle Slew's going to get extra credit. I think Secretariat, perception-wise, will be part of the equation. And I think the newbie would be American Pharaoh. Honestly, I mean, in terms of if there were exotic wagers on this thing, I think the odds makers have done a hell of a job here in terms of the number they put up. But in terms of picking the winner, I mean, I would have thought perception-wise, Secretariat would tower above everybody, and Secretariat should absolutely win this race. And as time has gone on, now I'm not so sure. So it's actually a pretty compelling deal. But the one thing I would say with a common frame of reference, Seattle Slew gets credit for having beat Affirmed. And I think the fact Citation, the last Triple Crown winner, nobody did it until the 70s. I think Secretariat would get more credit than Seattle Slew. I'm thinking if there was an exact in this race, I think I'd be going with Secretariat and Citation. And I think American Pharoah's part of the equation. Seattle Slew runs fourth. But I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great fun to watch. It'll be a fun day of horse racing on Saturday with opportunities of plenty to bet. Pretty much the only thing we're able to bet on these days. And horse racing is going to take center stage on what should be the first Saturday in May, the Kentucky Derby. We know the Derby's coming up early September. But these horses, don't forget, the horses that win today, these were the horses that were pointed to win the Kentucky Derby today. And by the time we get to September, there could be some new shooter, some 3-year-old that's become a monster. The Derby is going to be really compelling when we get to the fall. But first things first, we'll have fun watching the races at Oaklawn Park.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.